Today we are going to discuss about the term database in context of bioinformatics. Let's begin from very scratch. Now, whenever we come across this word database, question arises actually what is the meaning of this term? A database is a computational archive or a site for storage. Okay, now what is this going to store? Obviously, it is going to store some information. How it is the database or this site is going to store the information? It is going to store in the form of a systematic manner or an organized manner. Let's understand this word systematic manner or organized manner with a simple example. Suppose in a class of students, the teacher is going to conduct a written test and then he or she organizes the test notebooks in the order of their roll number, and then he stores those notebooks into an almirah. After some time, the students ask the teacher to return those notebooks. Now what the teacher is going to do? The teacher is going to open the almirah and going to search the almirah for the notebooks by using the roll number. So this way he or she can easily retrieve those information or get back those notebooks very easily. So it means from a database one can easily retrieve the information. To summarize, a database is a computational archive or a site of storage where the information is organized in a systematic manner, and in additionally one can easily retrieve that information from the database. Let's move forward and understand some basic key components of a database. There are three major components of a database. First is query, second is entry, and third is field or column attribute. Let's understand what is a query. A query is basically question asked to the database. It is a request for information from a DBMS or the database management system. Let's understand this thing with the help of one example. Suppose you open the Google and put in a question that what is bioinformatics. So this question, that is what is bioinformatics, is actually the query being asked from the database. Purpose of a query is to extract specific kind of information from the database. To easily understand, let's look at some other examples like finding all employees in a certain department of an organization, or query can also be used to modify some existing information, like for example updating the salary of an employee or updating some basic information related to an employee in a database of that company. Moving on to the second component of a database, that is an entry. So entry is nothing else but it is a set of record that is present within the database. Like say suppose in a table which stores the employee information, each row would represent a single employee and contain all the associated details like the name, ID, department, and the salary. So overall, entry means all the basic informations which is present within a database, they make up the entry. Entry has certain kind of fields or subdomains. Now what are those subdomains? They are the third component of the database, means a field or a column attribute. So each subcategory of that entry that forms a field. Suppose you fill an application form of a school or a college. It contains certain kind of informations like the name, family name, and the date of birth. All these informations which is asked from the user, that forms the field or column attribute. In particular example given here, like the first name and the last name or the address or the city or the age of the applicant or the employee, in particular this in this specific table, they form the fields of the database. So I hope you have understood the basic meanings of the database and the various components in a database. Let's move forward. There are basically three types of databases. The first one is a flat file format database. The second one is a relational database, and the third one is an object oriented database. Let's understand each one of them on sequential basis. A flat file database. A flat file, as the name indicates, it contains information in a linear manner. Means it contains information in a single tablet like the information provided in a spreadsheet. So there are no structured relationships among records. Means the data integration here is missing. Each line within a flat file database holds certain kind of record. So these fields or the columns which are present in that flat file format database, they are separated by tab delimiters in case of a FASTA file. So FASTA file comprising a DNA sequences or RNA sequences, that is an example of a flat file database. In addition, a simple CSV file which contains genes names or their description, that also is an example of a flat file format database. A flat file format database, it is easy to create and easy to use. Means they are lighter in terms of storage and there is no complex setup is required for forming such flat file format database. However, there are certain drawbacks to these flat file format databases. First is slower. How they become slower? As you put on or add on more amount of information or more number of fields within a flat file format database, it becomes slower. Another thing is there is lack of knowledge discovery or there is no enforcement of data integrity. What it means here is that the various fields like the field 1, field 2 or field 3, the various entries which we make in a flat file format database, they do not have any relationships between them. Means they are independent entries, so you cannot get any information about what is the relationships between those fields or various types of data which you have entered in a flat file format database. Since they become slower and they lack knowledge discovery, hence they are not scalable for identifying or for ascertaining complex relationships. So these drawbacks in a flat file format database, they have given rise to the second type, that is a relational databases. So relational databases, they are constructed using SQL or a structured query language. So they store data in multiple tables. Like say for example, you have three tables, T1, T2 and T3. In table 1, you basically write the names of the students and the roll number of the students. In table 2, you again write the roll number of the students and their age. In table 3, you again write the roll number of the students and their address. So clearly, whenever we want to determine the name, age and address of a particular student, we can easily identify by just identifying or having information about the roll number of the students. So this roll number becomes the determining factor which determines the relationships between the three tables. Same is the case of a relational database. Herein, data integrity or knowledge discovery can be achieved by relating the tables or the data entries across various fields. Such type of databases are highly structured because they contain tables with rows and columns, and relationships can be easily defined across the tables. The major advantage or pros of relational databases is that they enforce data integrity and they are easy to query complex relationships using SQL. However, they can be slower at certain times with very large unoptimized joins or relationships across the various tables. In addition, they require some design upfront or schemes for designing such databases. The third type of database is an object-oriented database. These object-oriented databases, they store data or information as objects. Like in the previous example, we look for the student name, their address, and the courses which are being offered by the university or the courses thus selected by the students. So all these form the objects of that database. A specific example of an object-oriented database is the phone book in your cell phone. That is an object-oriented database. Herein, data and methods are encapsulated together, and the objects contain attributes or fields and their behaviors. In context of object-oriented database, an example could be a molecular modeling database which stores molecules as objects with certain properties such as atoms or bonds, and the methods used for computing masses of those atoms or molecules. Since object-oriented databases have only a certain kind of information, so they are meant to perform only specific type of applications. So they are naturally mapped to applications which have been oriented around a specific object. So they are good for complex databases, complex data types such as 3D structures. However, there are certain cons or disadvantages when designing such object-oriented database. Is there is less widespread adoption because they perform very specific functions. For learning those specific functions, one needs to attain certain skill sets. So the development of these databases can require certain custom development skills. One thing I did not mention earlier was an example of relational databases. NCBI, GenBank, nucleotide database, they all form the relational database. Now let's move on to our next topic, that is various kinds of biological databases based upon the type of data which is stored into them. There are three major categories of biological databases. First is primary database, second is secondary database, and third is a specialized database. Let's talk about primary database. Primary database, they contain information which is extracted from your experiment. The very fundamental information you acquired from an experiment that will form the part of a primary database. An example of a primary database is NCBI or the protein data bank. Say in NCBI, you will find FASTQ files. Now these FASTQ files, they contain gene sequences. Now these gene sequences are basically acquired through sequencing of your DNA samples. So and DNA samples, they are isolated from certain sources like a cell. Raw DNA sequences which are acquired, they form a primary database. In addition, the results obtained from an X-ray crystallography experiments, they will also be stored into certain kind of databases which store such kind of information. In addition, your NMR information or NMR data is also a sort of primary database. The second kind of biological database is a secondary database. Secondary databases, they contain information which are derived from a primary database. Like you have gene sequences and they are translated to form amino acid sequences. Okay, so this translated amino acid sequence, this will form a secondary database. So there are certain examples of secondary database such as CATH database, which contain information about protein structures such as protein folding patterns. So this is a secondary database. In addition, UniProt database, it is also an example of a secondary database. The third type of database is a specialized database. Specialized database, they contain, as the name indicates, they contain information of a very specific kind, like a database which contain information about HIV or human immunodeficiency virus or HCV virus. They will form a specialized database because they will serve only to the needs of people who are specialized in certain domains. Another popular examples of specialized database is CAG or the Kyoto Encyclopedia of Genes and Genomes. In addition, OMIM, which stands for Online Mendelian Inheritance in Men, that is also an example of specialized database. I hope you have understood all these points. If you have any query, then please let us know. We will be bringing you more content related to bioinformatics on our channel Bioenigma Uncovered. Please stay tuned for such kind of informative and knowledgeful lectures. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe our channel. Thank you so much for watching this video.